The bookstore that only opens at night. You've walked this street 1,000 times. You know every crack in the pavement, every flickering street lamp humming its lonely electric tune. But tonight, something's different. Tucked between two buildings you'd swear were always touching. There's a bookstore that wasn't there before. The sign is a dark, weathered slab of wood, unlit, with letters so faded you can barely make them out. The windows are just black voids, reflecting nothing back at you. But the door, a heavy thing of oak and iron, is unlocked. It only opens in the dead of night. Inside, there's no staff, no lights, just books, and they're waiting. What do you do? Section 1. The Discovery. Well, I know what I did. I pushed the door open. It wasn't bravery, you understand. It was a pull. That same morbid curiosity that makes you slow down to look at an accident on the side of the road. The air that drifted out to meet me was the first warning. It was thick, heavy with the scent of decaying paper, old leather, and something else. Something like dried flowers and cold stone. The smell of a forgotten tomb. The door groaned shut behind me with a final echoing thud, and the sound of the city was just gone. The silence that replaced it was absolute. This wasn't just quiet. It felt like a physical weight pressing in on my ears, making my own heartbeat sound like a frantic drum. The only light came from a single tall window at the far end of the shop, where a sliver of moonlight cut through the gloom, lighting up a swirling galaxy of dust motes. The place itself was impossible. The ceiling soared upwards into a Gothic vault so high it just disappeared into shadow. Shelves stretched up into that darkness, overflowing with books of every size and shape. There was no organization here. It was a chaotic jumble of books leaning against each other like tired old men, spines cracked, covers warped. The whole place felt ancient, like it had been hiding here for centuries, just out of sight. I took a step, my shoe scuffing against the wooden floor, and the sound felt like a desecration. I froze just listening, waiting. For what? I had no idea. A shopkeeper to appear from the shadows? A security guard to yell at me? But there was nothing. No counter, no register, no sign that anyone had ever been here. Just the endless, silent, looming shelves. As I walked deeper in, I ran my fingers along the spines. The leather felt cold and brittle. I couldn't read any of the titles. Most were either blank or in languages I didn't recognize, their letters like jagged scratches. It was in the farthest, darkest corner of the shop that the first truly strange thing happened. A book, a small, plain volume in dark green cloth, tumbled from a high shelf. It didn't just fall. It slid out almost deliberately and landed on the floor with a soft, muffled thud. My hand was trembling a little as I bent down to get it. The cover was bare. No title, no author. Just worn, green cloth. I hesitated, then opened it. The pages were all empty. Every single one. Just yellowed, blank paper. I felt a quick flash of disappointment, then a fresh wave of unease. Why keep a book with no words? My thumb brushed against the edge of a page, and that's when it happened. Section 2. The First Whisper. A voice, not in my ear, it was inside my head. A dry, rasping whisper, like dead leaves skittering across pavement. It was an old man, and he was terrified. The fog is so thick, the whisper said, thicker than I've ever seen. The light can barely cut through. It's been 3 days since the supply ship was due, 3 days of this silence. But it's not empty. I see a shape in the mist, tall, thin. It stands at the edge of the rocks, just watching. It doesn't move. Every time I look away and look back, it's a little closer to the shore. The whisper faded, leaving me with a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I dropped the book like it was on fire, the sound echoing like a gunshot in the heavy silence. The story wasn't written on the page. It was in the page, trapped in the very fibers of the paper. I backed away, my eyes darting across the shelves. They weren't just objects anymore. They were vessels, each one holding a voice, a memory, a final moment. How many stories were trapped in this place? How many last words were waiting in this silence? I should have run. I know that now. I should have turned around and bolted. But I didn't. I was in too deep. I walked to another aisle, one bathed in that pale moonlight. A thick, leather-bound tome lay open on a lectern, its pages filled with intricate, hand-drawn maps of places that couldn't possibly exist. My hand hovered over the parchment. I had to know. I had to hear just one more. I pressed my finger to the page. Instantly, a new voice, a woman's, soft and melodic, but twisted with a desperate sadness. He told me he'd build me a garden where the flowers never died, she whispered. He painted it for me first, on a huge canvas. It was beautiful, a labyrinth of roses and night-blooming jasmine under a silver moon. He worked on it for a year. The day he finished, I went to his studio. The painting was there, glowing like it was lit from within. But he was gone. The room was empty. Sometimes at night, I think I can see him, walking among the painted roses. He never turns around. I call his name, but he just keeps walking deeper into the painting. I snatched my hand back. 2 stories, 2 souls, trapped in ink and paper. One lost to fear, the other to heartbreak. What was this place? A library of ghosts? A feverish energy took hold of me. I moved faster, letting my hand drift, brushing against spine after spine. The whispers started to overlap and bleed together. A child humming a nursery rhyme that twisted into a scream. A soldier's last prayer on a forgotten battlefield. A lover's promise that curdled into a curse. The voices swirled in my head. A storm of life and death, love and terror. They were pulling at me, begging to be heard. The air grew thick with their sorrow and their rage, and it was getting hard to breathe. Hard to tell where their thoughts ended and my own began. Section 3. The heart of the store. And then I saw it. In the very center of the bookstore, where the moonlight pooled the brightest, was a pedestal. On it rested a single, enormous book. This one was different. It was bound in what looked like black iron, with no title or markings at all. Just a single polished obsidian circle set into the cover, like a dead eye staring up into the shadows. It radiated a cold I could feel from feet away. The other books whispered of sorrow and fear. This one was silent, but its silence was heavier, more profound than the room's. It was the silence of a predator waiting. As I got closer, all the other voices in my head just faded away, as if in fear. I knew instinctively that this was the heart of the store. All the whispers, all the stories, they were all flowing from this one silent source. This book held the answer. My hand was shaking uncontrollably, but I couldn't stop. I had to know what story it held. Was it the story of the bookstore? Of who or what had collected all these lost souls? I reached out, and laid my palm flat against the cold, smooth obsidian. There was no whisper. There was a roar, a silent mental roar that threw me back, not physically, but inside my own head. Images and sounds crashed over me. I saw the bookstore being born. I saw a man, gaunt and pale, with eyes that burned with a lonely fire. He wasn't a monster. He was a scholar, a historian, terrified of one thing more than anything else: being forgotten. He believed that a story never truly ends, as long as someone is there to tell it. So he created a refuge, a place for stories to live forever. He used some kind of forgotten magic to bind people's final, most powerful emotions into the books they were near when they passed. He created a sanctuary for the forgotten. But the magic had a price. A library of souls needs to be fed. And to be fed, it needs a librarian. The scholar's voice was no longer a whisper. It was loud and clear in my mind. A story must be told. It boomed. But it must also be heard. The collection is vast, but it's incomplete without a curator. Someone to listen, someone to walk the aisles, someone to stay. The last one grew tired. His story is in that little green book you first held. He longed only for the sea. Now his story can finally rest. The obsidian on the cover began to glow. In its polished surface, I didn't see my reflection. I saw the bookstore, the aisles, the shelves, the moonlight. And standing where I was standing, I saw a figure. It wasn't me. It was someone else. Their face a mask of curious wonder as they reached out to touch a book. A dread colder and deeper than anything I had ever felt washed over me. This wasn't a prison for books. It was a trap. The price of listening wasn't just hearing the story. It was becoming part of the collection. The bookstore needed a keeper, and it had just found a new one. Conclusion. I ran. I scrambled backwards, falling over a pile of books as the whispers rushed back in, no longer sad, but hungry. I crab-walked away from the pedestal, got to my feet, and sprinted for the door, not daring to look back. I slammed my shoulder into the heavy oak, and it swung open, spilling me out onto the cold, familiar pavement. I just lay there, gasping for air, the hum of the street lamp the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. When I finally worked up the courage to look back, it was gone. The space between the two buildings was just a solid brick wall, no sign it had ever been there. It's been a week. Everything looks the same, but it's not. I can't sleep. In the quiet moments, I can still hear them. Faint whispers right at the edge of my hearing. The sailor in the fog, the woman in the painting. They're with me now. And sometimes, late at night, when I walk down that street, I feel a pull towards that empty space between the buildings. A feeling of coming home. I know that one night, the door will be there again, and I'm terrified that this time, I won't be able to stop myself from staying. If you enjoy stories that lurk in the hidden corners of the world, make sure you subscribe for more tales from the shadows. Let me know in the comments. Which book do you think you would have picked up first?